move toward the higher center, that is cerebrum. So first, today's topic is in general introduction of the cerebrum. So cerebrum resides in the cranial cavity. We have learned cranial cavity, that this cranial cavity is divided into three parts, that is anterior, middle and posterior cranial fossas. So in total, whole of the brain resides in this. So this cranial cavity is divided into two parts because of the fold of dura mater. This fold of dura mater, which is separating this cranial cavity into superior and inferior part, is called as a tentorium cerebelli. In the diagram, you are able to see this is a tentorium cerebelli. We have learned about tentorium cerebelli. So this has a two parts. One is connected or attached part, one is free part. So because of this tentorium, this cranial cavity is divided into two parts. In the superior part lies the cerebrum, while in the inferior part lies the brainstem and the cerebellum. Okay, so above will be called as a supratentorial compartment, while below will be called as a infratentorial compartment. So now this cerebrum is not a single thing, it is divided into two parts. So they resemble half of the sphere, so they are called as a cerebral hemispheres. Though these two cerebral hemispheres, they lie side by side and they are separated by a vertical, that is longitudinal fissure, which is in the midline, which is called as a median longitudinal fissure. Though it do not completely separate the cerebral hemispheres, in the middle of that, there is a structure called as a corpus callosum, which is connecting these two cerebral hemispheres. So two cerebral hemispheres separated by the median longitudinal fissure, not completely. In the upper part, it is a complete, while in the lower part, the two cerebral hemispheres are joined by corpus callosum structure. Now, in this median longitudinal fissure, again, there is a fold of dura mater, which is separating the two cerebral hemispheres. This fold of dura mater is called as a falx cerebri. As it is separating the two cerebral hemisphere, it is called as a falx cerebri. So we have seen two dural fold. This is a falx cerebri, which is attached at the level of the coronal suture. In the upper part, it divides and it contains the superior sagittal sinus. While its free border, which is on the inferior side, it contains inferior sagittal sinus. And it is in correlation with corpus callosum. Then second fold we have seen is the tentorium cerebelli, which is separating the supratentorial and infratentorial compartment. Third fold is called as a diaphragma celli. Here this is a pituitary fossa which contains the pituitary gland. This pituitary gland has an opening in the upper part. This opening is covered by again a fold of dura mater called as a diaphragma celli. So these are the three folds. Fourth fold is called as a falx cerebelli, which is again separating two cerebellar hemispheres. Any problem? Am I audible clearly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so these are the four folds of the dura mater. So these dural folds as well as the sinuses which are contained within this fold, they are very important as a question point of view. So dural folds as well as sinuses might come as a for diagram drawing or as a short note. So this was the how these cerebral hemispheres are separated. Now, what is the position of this cerebrum? This is the diagram showing the cerebrum. We have removed the brainstem and the cerebellum. So it has three poles. This is called as a frontal pole, which obviously will be presented anteriorly. This is called as an occipital pole, so it is on the posterior side. So how to determine which one is the frontal and which one is the occipital? So for that purpose, we have to understand there is a third pole called as a temporal pole, which is also facing forward. So why this happens, why this fold is there? Actually, during evolution, this temporal pole was actually on the posterior pole. But from the primates to the human species, there was a development of the brain during evolution. It increased in size, and cranial cavity did not increase that much in size to accommodate this size of the brain. So what happened? This posterior pole grows and it folded on the brain, and it come forward to form the temporal pole. So actually temporal pole was the posterior pole. Now because of the growth of the brain, it moves forward. So we have three poles. One is frontal pole, second is occipital pole, and third is temporal pole. So you have to, when you take this brain in your hands and dissection, we have a specimen of the cerebrum, full cerebrum as well as half cerebrum. So you have to understand two poles should be facing forward. So that will be the frontal poles and temporal poles. Now you have to identify as well, medial surface is flat. So whatever part of the cerebrum you have taken, the medial surface should face to the opposite side. That means if you have taken the left hemisphere surface, which is flat, should face on the right side. So that is how you determine the side of the cerebral hemisphere. Here in this cross section, if you take a cross section in the middle part of the cerebrum, what we are able to see? Here, this is a median longitudinal fissure which is separating the two cerebral hemisphere. As you can see, it is complete in the upper part, but in the lower part, it is not there. So it is because of this connection which is between the two cerebral hemisphere. This connection is called as a corpus callosum. Now here, these black things you can see, these are actually the ventricles which are present in cerebral hemisphere. So in each cerebral hemisphere, one ventricle present, which is called as a lateral ventricle. Below that, this is the brainstem you can see. This is a temporal lobe. This is the parietal lobe. Now, in general, how to describe this hemisphere? So this hemisphere has three surfaces, three poles, three borders, and six lobes. So what are these three surfaces? The diagram represents the superolateral surface. Okay, so this surface is convoluted. It is because of the sulci gyri, and it is convex surface. The medial surface will be flat, and the inferior surface again irregular in shape. Three poles, I already told you about that. Three borders. Now, this border, which is present at the level of median longitudinal fissure, which is separating the medial surface from superolateral surface, will be called as a superomedial border, separating the superolateral surface from medial surface. Then this border, which is inferolateral surface, which is separating the inferior surface from this superolateral surface. Well, third border is called as the inferomedial surface. In this diagram, you are able to see all three surfaces. This is a superolateral surface, and this is a superomedial border. Then this is a medial surface. This is a corpus callosum. I already told you this is the connecting between two cerebral hemispheres. And this is the inferior surface. So in this inferior surface, this dotted blue line suggests the inferomedial border, which is separating the medial surface from inferior surface. As in between two cerebral hemisphere, there is a brainstem. This is a midbrain. Okay, so that's why this border is not straight. Okay, so I hope you understood the borders. The borders are important for you. Then this inferomedial border will come to that part that is divided into anteriorly medial orbital border, because that is related to orbital part, and posteriorly it is related to the occipital lobe, so it is called as a medial occipital border. Then six lobes. In the front will be obviously frontal lobe. Behind that there will be parietal lobe. Most posterior will be occipital lobe, and in the folded part at the level of temporal pole, there will be temporal lobe. So these four lobes are visible on the superolateral surface as well as on the medial surface. The insular lobe is a hidden lobe in the, this is called as a lateral sulcus. So if we separate the lips of this lateral sulcus, we are able to see this insular lobe. And again, deep to the in this all cerebral hemisphere is the limbic lobe. So these are the six lobes. Now to understand the superolateral surface, we have to understand two important sulci, which are very much important for the sulci gyri as well as functional areas, as well as understanding the position of the cerebral hemisphere. So first is called as a central sulcus. Though it is called as a central sulcus, it is not in the center. So it starts from the superomedial border. So this is a superomedial border, which is separating the superolateral surface, which we are going to see in the diagram, from the flat medial surface. So if we should draw a midpoint between the frontal and occipital pole, just behind this midpoint, the central sulcus cuts this superomedial border, and then it goes downward, forward, and laterally. Then just ends above this is a lateral sulcus, which is going laterally. So it just ends above the lateral sulcus. Okay. Now this sulcus not only starts from superomedial, it crosses from the superomedial border into the medial surface as well. So where there is a gyrus which is formed around this central sulcus is called as a paracentral lobule. So gyrus around the central sulcus on the medial surface is called as a paracentral lobule. So what is central sulcus? Is the sulcus starting from superomedial border just behind the midpoint between the frontal and occipital pole. It goes downward, forward, and laterally, and it ends just above the lateral sulcus. But this sulcus also goes on the medial surface, and the gyrus which is surrounding the central sulcus is called as a paracentral lobule. So that is how you identify the central sulcus in the brain as well. So if you are holding the cerebral hemisphere, you will have to identify where is the central sulcus. So how to identify? First, identify the central point. Just behind the central point, the sulcus which is going in this direction, that is downward, forward, and laterally, will be the central sulcus. If you want to confirm, then identify whatever the sulcus you are suspecting is a central sulcus, it should cut on the medial surface as well. Thirdly, as it is shown in the diagram, it might not be in the straight line. It might have disturbed in between. So make sure you have identified it correctly. Then second sulcus is called as a lateral sulcus of Sylvius. Now this sulcus is easy. This is going straight backward, but it has three rami. So one is called as anterior because it is moving towards the anterior side, called as anterior ramus. It is 2.5 centimeter. One is ascending upwards, so it is called as a ascending ramus. While one is going posteriorly, so this is called as a posterior ramus, which is 7.5 centimeter. So here, this is it should be superomedial border. So here it is shown is the lateral sulcus. But the stem on this, whatever diagram was showing were the three rami. We have not seen the stem, which is seen on the inferior surface. So this is the stem of the lateral sulcus. Now this inferior surface as well, I told you this is divided into two surfaces as well, orbital and tentorial. And this inferior-medial border is also divided into two parts, orbital and occipital. So this is the occipital part, while this will be the orbital part. So this is how the inferior surface is seen. So this is a very easy diagram to draw as well. So this is the orbital surface. Now this surface is present or is lying over the anterior cranial fossa, that is orbital plates. If you remember cranial cavity, the most shallow part of the cranial cavity is the anterior cranial fossa. So that's why here this part will be residing on the orbital plate, while this temporal pole goes deeper into the middle cranial fossa in relation with sphenoid bone. Now this is a olfactory bulb. Olfactory is related to the smell. So these are the olfactory bulbs from which receives the olfactory nerves, and then it goes from olfactory tract, which is divided into lateral and medial olfactory tracts. Then on the orbital surface, there is a H-shaped sulcus. This is how you identify this orbital surface. So we'll see surfaces now. So superolateral surface, the maximum diameter of the surface, or at this level of the cerebral hemisphere, we can find the maximum diameter at level of the parietal eminences of the skull, same as the skull. Now you have to understand, though we have given the same names to the lobes and the bones, they do not coincide. So frontal lobe may not be very small compared to the frontal bone. So coronal or sagittal suture doesn't determine the boundary between the lobes and determine the boundaries between the bones only. So frontal lobe is actually present in front of the central sulcus, and this is the above the lateral sulcus. So coronal suture is not at the level of central sulcus, it's actually in front of the central sulcus. Okay. Then parietal lobe lies behind the central sulcus, and there is a small notch called as a parieto-occipital sulcus. This is very small, so we draw an imaginary line from here to the parieto-occipital notch or the pre-occipital notch. So the occipital pole, just in front of this occipital pole, there is a small depression called as a notch. As it is related to occipital pole, it is called as a pre-occipital notch. So here we draw this diagram, imaginary line to the inferior border, and this it is separating the parietal lobe from occipital lobe. So occipital lobe will be behind this imaginary line, which is separating the parietal from occipital lobe. Then temporal lobe, obviously it lies below the lateral sulcus. Insular is also called as a central lobe. This central lobe is pyramidal in shape and it lies at the bottom of the lateral sulcus. So I told you we will have to separate these lips of this lateral sulcus, and we will be able to see the insula or insular lobe. So here we are trying to separate this lobe, and inside will be the lobe. Now you have to understand, whatever higher centers, so we again divided into two parts, gray matter and white matter. So there will be a gray matter in the cerebral hemisphere. Below that there will be numerous white fiber tracts. Again, in the deep to these tracts, there will be collection of the cell bodies will represent the different types of nuclei. So that is how the arrangement of the cerebral structure is there. So that was the superolateral surface. Sulci gyra will be dealt in the next lecture. So in superolateral surface, we have to identify the poles. We'll have to identify the central sulcus and lateral sulcus. We'll have to define how these lobes are divided. On the medial surface, the most important structure which easily appreciable is called as a corpus callosum. This corpus callosum is the largest collection of commissural fibers. Now I will told you, deep to the gray matter there is a white matter, that is tracts. So these tracts are again divided into three types. In short, I will tell you, these white fibers, they are divided into three types. First type is called as association fibers. That means in the same cerebral hemisphere, it is connecting two different nuclei. So they are from the same cerebral hemisphere going to the same cerebral hemisphere. But if they are connecting the two cerebral hemisphere like corpus callosum, then it is called as a commissural fibers. And third type of fiber is called as a projection fiber. So they are projected from the higher centers to the lower center. So association fiber, they are residing in the same cerebral hemisphere. Commissural fibers, they are connecting the two cerebral hemispheres. Projection fibers, they are connecting the higher center projected to the lower center. So corpus callosum, then there is a bend. As this is a bend, this is called as a genu, which is the most anterior part of the corpus callosum. Behind that, there will be body of the corpus callosum. And the most posterior part, which is very much expanded, will be called as a splenium. Now, this corpus callosum, its most anterior point is 4 centimeter behind the frontal pole, while the most posterior point of the splenium of the corpus callosum is 6 centimeter in front of the occipital pole. So this distance is 4, this distance is 6 centimeter. Okay. Now this rostrum continues in front with a lamina called as a lamina terminalis. Then there is a gyrus around this corpus callosum. So there will be a sulcus which is separating this gyrus from the corpus callosum called as a callosal gyrus. And the sulcus will be called as, callosal sulcus, and there will be a gyrus called as a cingulate gyrus. So callosal sulcus separating cingulate gyrus from the corpus callosum. Now just below this corpus callosum, you are able to see a thin partition called as a septum pellucidum. This is a septum pellucidum, which is starting from the undersurface of corpus callosum and going up to the fornix. Now what is fornix? We'll see in the next slide. So I hope you understood what is corpus callosum. This corpus callosum is a white matter which is connecting the two cerebral hemisphere, which lies in the base of median longitudinal fissure. Now this has different parts. First part is rostrum. Most anterior part where this rostrum bends is called as a genu. Then there is a body, and the most posterior expanded part is called as a splenium. This genu is 4 centimeter behind the frontal pole, while the splenium is 6 centimeter in front of the occipital pole. Just below this corpus callosum, or we'll see first, just above this corpus callosum, there is a sulcus called as a callosal sulcus, which is separating the corpus callosum from a gyrus called as a cingulate gyrus. Obviously, on the medial surface as well, we are able to see all the 4 lobes. Okay, in front of the central sulcus will be frontal pole. From the central sulcus to that the parieto-occipital sulcus will be parietal lobe. Behind this parieto-occipital sulcus, an imaginary line from splenium to pre-occipital notch will be occipital pole, and below the third ventricle will be temporal lobe. Now, septum, which is separating the which is extending from the corpus callosum to the fornix. Now, below fornix, there is an interthalamic space. So, the thalamus of right side, thalamus of the left side. In between these two, there will be a small space. That space is occupied by the third ventricle. So, what is fornix? Again, fornix is also a white matter, but it is formed by the mixed fibers, that is projection fibers and commissural fibers of hippocampus. Now, some of might you know that hippocampus is related to the short memory. Now, this is the diagram showing the how this fornix is placed. So, these are the mammillary bodies which are related to the hippocampus. These are the fibers which are coming from hippocampus. They are called as fimbria. This is the hippocampus, and from here the 2 crura will be there, and the together will join to form the body. 2 crura again will be joined by some commissural fibers. So this is called as a commissure of fornix. And again they diverge. So this is called as a columns of fornix, and they go to their respective mammillary body. I just want you to understand what is fornix. The details will be seen in the upcoming lectures. So we have completed the medial surface. On the medial surface, again, you'll have to define what is corpus callosum, how it is formed, what are the fibers inside it, what are the parts, then how the lobes are divided on the medial surface and other different parts of the medial surface. So once you learn the sulci gyri, you will be able to understand what are the important sulcus and gyri. Now this is the inferior surface. On the inferior surface, the front will be the orbital, while the back will be tentorial surface, as it is related to the tentorium cerebelli. Orbital surface is easy. It will have a H-shaped sulcus which divides into 4 gyri. Now there is olfactory bulb and olfactory tract, and there is an optic chiasma. So olfactory tract is related to olfactory nerve, while the optic chiasma is related to the optic nerve. Now, what is chiasma? So, what is chiasma? It is formed by the two optic nerves coming from right and left side, and there is a mixing, or instead of mixing, it can be called as a nasal fibers are going to cross. So, nasal fibers of the right side will go to left side, when the nasal fibers of the left side will go to right side. So what are the nasal fibers? Now, whatever vision we have, it is divided into two parts. The medial most will be called as a nasal vision, while the lateral most will be called as a temporal vision. So according to that vision, the fibers are the same. So medial vision will be carried by the nasal fibers, while the temporal vision will be carried by the temporal fibers. So these nasal fibers of the left side will be going to the right side, while the nasal fibers of the right side will go to left side. So this crossing happens at the level of optic chiasma. So this is optic chiasma. Now from this optic chiasma, two tracts comes out, and these are called as the optic tracts. In the pons, we learned that there are two geniculate bodies, lateral and medial. So this medial geniculate body is related to hearing, while lateral geniculate body is related to the vision. So this is called as a optic chiasma, which is divided into now two tracts. So optic chiasma is very important again for you. You have to identify in the base of the brain, as well as optic nerve is one of the very important questions both in physio as well as anatomy. So now after optic chiasma, there is a structure, or not exactly structure, is a fossa present, depression is present. This depression is called as an interpeduncular fossa. Interpeduncle means in between the two peduncles. So basis pedunculi, which is a part of midbrain, then in between these two peduncles there is a big depression. So this is depression called as an interpeduncular fossa. Now this is almost diamond shape. Anteriorly you can see there is optic chiasma. Then anterolaterally there will be optic tracts. Posterolaterally there is a basis pedunculi, and posteriorly there will be pons. This is a cut section, so you are not able to see the pons. So this is a interpeduncular fossa. Now this interpeduncular fossa boundaries, I told you, the structures which are forming the floor. So these structures which are forming the floor are called as a posterior perforated substance. Then mammillary bodies, which we have seen with the fornix, tuber cinereum, infundibulum, and hypophysis cerebri. That means pituitary gland. So these are the floor of the interpeduncular fossa. So here you can see anterior perforated substance. So anterior perforated substance will be present two. One will be on left side, one will be on right side. While this posterior perforated substance is in the midline, so it will be only single. Now what this defines? As the name suggests, it is perforated. That means the brain tissue is perforated here. And why it is perforated? It is because of the piercing arterial branches which are going inside. So that's why it looks perforated, and that's why we, according to that location, we call it the anterior and posterior perforated substance. Here this is a mammillary body. This is a posterior perforated substance. Now at the same level, there is a diaphragm ocelli and the infundibulum from the hypothalamus and tuber cinereum as well. It goes downward, pierce this diaphragm ocelli and go towards the pituitary. So that is the actually the structures which are contained within the interpeduncular fossa. Sorry, floor of the fossa. Then what are the structures which are contained? So in this peduncular fossa, there is a circle of Willis and oculomotor nerve, that is third nerve. What is circle of Willis? We'll see in the next slide. So oculomotor nerve is the third nerve. Now, the clinical significance of this interpeduncular fossa is that if there is a tumor related to these mammillary bodies, they cause anterograde amnesia. Amnesia is the loss of memory. There are two types, anterograde, posterograde. Anterograde means the just before the incident or the accident, something, whatever events happen, they forget that. So that is called as a anterograde amnesia. So mammillary body, whenever there is a dysfunction, it generally happens with Korsakoff syndrome, which is very common in alcoholics. So that's why this is called as, is related to the diencephalon, because mammillary body is a part of diencephalon. So it is also called as a diencephalic amnesia. So according to structure, it is called as a diencephalic. According to its memory loss, it is called as a anterograde amnesia. Okay. So interpeduncular fossa, melanosis is also very common. At the same level, we have very important structures: optic tract, oculomotor nerve, tibial infundibulum, that is stalk of the pituitary, and pituitary gland. So at this, in very small contained space, there are too many important structures present. So this is surgically a very important structure. So anterior perforated substance, I already told you, this is the pierced by the numerous branches. So they commonly ask you what are the branches. So it is a middle cerebral artery, branches of middle cerebral artery. Now this is the circle of Willis. We have in short saw this, that there are two vertebral arteries which are passing through the fragments of the cervical vertebrates. They come together and at the base of the pond, in the groove, they join together to form the basilar artery. Then they give numerous branches. So this is the from posterior side. From the anterior side to internal carotid come. They give branches on the anterior side, they give branches on the posterior side. So together all these branches and vessels, they together form a circle which is lying just in this base of the brain. So here you can see these are two internal carotid arteries. This is a basilar artery, vertebral arteries. This is a pons and this is medulla. So together they will form a circle of arterial branches. So this is called as a circle of Willis. So that was the general introduction of the cerebrum. So any part you have not understood or should be revised fast? All of you did understood today's topic?
Yes, ma'am.
Because if you understood today's topic, tomorrow will be Salkai Gaira. So if today's base is not understood by you, Salkai Gaira will be difficult for you.
Understood, ma'am.
Okay. Any questions?
Ma'am, can you revise the medial surface?
Okay. So I all told you, you have to understand central sulcus and lateral sulcus. Then central sulcus is on the superolateral surface as well as the lateral sulcus. You'll have to define how they are going, what are their parts, and how will you identify them. Okay. Then medial surface, the most important structure you can see is the corpus callosum. So this is a corpus callosum. This corpus callosum has a first part called as a rostrum, which continue with a lamina called as a lamina terminalis. So it is not separate, it continues from a lamina. From here, then it bends. So that's why, as it is due to bending, the most forward or the most anterior structure will be genu of the corpus callosum. Okay, so this is a genu. Then this will be the body of the corpus callosum, and lastly there will be splenium, that is the most posterior and expanded part of the corpus callosum. So location of the corpus callosum is at the base of median longitudinal fissure. What is corpus callosum? This is a white fiber tract which is connecting the two cerebral hemisphere. Okay, so those shape, you can see shape properly here, but actually it is expanded. Its tracks are coming from all over the cerebral hemispheres. So it might be like that. For most anterior part is connecting the anterior parts of the cerebrum, middle part is connecting the middle parts of the cerebrum, and posterior part is connecting the posterior parts of the cerebrum. So this is called as a commissural fibers. They are connecting two cerebral hemisphere. Other fibers are association fiber, which are present from one pair only. They do not go to other half of the cerebral hemisphere. While projection fibers, they are coming from the cerebrum higher center and going to the lower centers. That is, it might go to brainstem or cerebellum or the spinal cord. Okay, so these are the three types of white fibers. This corpus callosum, the genu is 4 centimeter behind the frontal pole, while the splenium is 6 centimeter in front of the occipital pole. Now this corpus callosum, you have to understand, in the childhood, generally we develop the dominance, that left-sided or right-sided. We generally, most of the population uses their right hand for their usual daily activities like writing, eating of the food. So that dominance develops in childhood. If we cut because of this corpus callosum means damaged or due to accident or some dysgenesis or rare genetic syndromes, this corpus callosum is not there, then the adults might have a problems during development. So there might be some seizures, so there might be some information going from right to left will be problematic. So this is called as a dysgenesis. Now below this corpus callosum, there is a thin partition, which is called as a septum pellucidum, which is separating the third ventricle cavity. Septum pellucidum, which is separating the partition, which is just below this corpus callosum, which is extending from corpus callosum to the fornix, and below fornix there will be the thalamus, which is in between two thalami. There is a ventricle called as a third ventricle. Okay, so this is the central part of the medial surface. Now just side of the corpus callosum, there is a sulcus called as a callosal sulcus, which is separating the cingulate gyrus from the corpus callosum. Above the cingulate gyrus, there will be cingulate sulcus. Now, this is the paracentral lobule. I told you this will be the central sulcus. The gyrus around this central sulcus is paracentral. In front of the central sulcus will be the frontal lobe. Behind this central sulcus and in front of the parieto-occipital sulcus will be the parietal lobe. Behind this parieto-occipital sulcus will be occipital pole. And below this thalami, there will be temporal lobe. So these are the structures you are able to see. So in the Viva, you will have to explain the structure. You'll have to explain the sulci gyri. You'll have to explain the functional areas. So I'll be taking the lecture in the next week, the functional areas. So we have given the areas numbers. So these numbers will denote universally all over the world, and they go to define a special area which has a special function. So that is the medial surface. Now what is fornix? Fornix is again a white matter tract which is connecting the mammillary body to the hippocampus. So they form actually from thalamus, so mammillothalamic tracts. So this hippocampus is related to short-term memory. This fornix is a triangular body, so there will be projection fiber as well as commissural fibers. So there are two diverging crura and two columns. So don't go into detail. I just want you to understand whenever the fornix terms comes, you have to understand this is a white matter tract and it's connecting the mammillary bodies to the hippocampus. This much part is sufficient up till now. Okay. The inferior surface. The inferior surface, you have to understand the interpeduncular fossa, mammillary body you can see, posterior perforated and anterior perforated substance you can see. You can see optic chiasma, you'll have to explain optic chiasma, olfactory tract, these are the medial and lateral olfactory striae, the gyrus rectus here, and this is H-shaped sulcus, and this is the tentorial surface of the inferior surface. So I hope you understood today's topic.